Hello everyone, how's it going? Palantir. This is a company that we have covered for many times on our channel. And over the last year or so, I would say that it really fascinated the retail traders for many good reasons. It is a company with interesting tech. It has a charismatic and somewhat mysterious CEO. We're going to come to that. It started trading in a market that was undergoing massive changes and possibly at the end of a major cycle. So, for all those reasons and some more, the market was really wondering if Palantir was going to take off from where it was, or if everything was simply too great to be true. So, this video is going to take a different format compared to my usual videos, because it is one thing to go through tech analysis of different companies, it's quite another to understand the mentality of people trading the stock at the same time as you. And hopefully with that mentality in mind, we would attempt to answer the question, why has Palantir disappointed us, the traders, so many times over the past 12 to 24 months? Why have we given so much hope and hype to Palantir and all we have is the right to hold the bag? We're going to talk about those different aspects in greater detail in today's video. So, for the fans of Palantir, the data is the future. Palantir has two major platforms analyzing those datas, and it has the support, I would say, of many deep-pocketed partners. The alphabet soup agencies, the defense departments, the public health systems of many countries. So essentially, it's playing a game that maybe it's less transparent or plays less on the transparency card, because many startups, let's be honest, many startups want to portray a very great image about themselves. I would say that Palantir cares slightly less on this aspect, like the fact that they work with ICE, the fact that they work with MOD. They don't really affect significantly the company's own reputation to the market. It is what it is, it's been priced in, so we can all move on to something else. Now, the deeper reasons, I would say, are things like the fact that Alex Karp seems to be a weird lizard genius that leads the investors to the profit land somehow. We don't have to understand how things work. We don't have to accept the fact that Palantir is the end-all be-all of the entire sector. We just have to believe. We just have to believe that the gravy train that started as the world economy shut down back in 2020 is going to continue forever. As long as we believe this, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Looking back, it sounds ridiculous, right? Because we know that nothing is going to last forever. But when you see a stock starts trading at around $10, going to 35 to 40, you start believing it. I lived through that period of time, and I remember telling myself, okay, it's a shame that I missed the massive wave from 10 to 30. So I'm going to wait for the stock to come back, enter in a position. That took many months, and in the meantime, the stock market vibe kind of changed, and people went from buy to, oh, you know what, I'm gonna check, right? I'm gonna check if those companies are actually going to hold the test of time, which, by the way, spoiler alert, many didn't. So there's Alex Karp. He reminds us of someone, wearing the turtleneck, has a weird and sometimes hot temper, a bit of a mad genius who can disrupt the sector by leading us to a new era. Yeah, I'm talking about Steve Jobs the Great. So these kinds of weird, intelligent, charismatic, and maverick people, they kind of make us want to spend money on their company. You know what I mean? Of course, there was the example of Elizabeth Holmes that we all want to believe that it's just a bad apple of the bunch. So, it's the exception and not the rule. And so far, I would say that everything kind of sort of still holds up. If we're willing to ignore the amount of liars or scam artists who exist in this field. That being said, of course, not everything goes back to Freud and psychology, because the biggest reason, and by far, is that back then, the market condition was that it has a low interest rate environment, almost deflationary environment in some countries. For example, the German bond was going at like negative 0.5 or negative 1 at the time. Japan has been like this for decades. So as the world economy also shut down in early 2020, Tesla suddenly took off. Now, of course, it has like company-specific fundamentals, but the chain effect that it had on stakeholders and shareholders and people who want to come in to the financial markets is that, well, you know what? Given that everything else is kind of like locking down, falling apart, why don't we just stay in tech sector? And a lot of people did. And for a time, everything took off. And everyone took off along with it. We have Elon, we have Kathy, we have the dude from Archegos, which, by the way, didn't end up very well. But regardless, they all did very well. So we wanted to come in as well. And then the rest is kind of history. CCIV went bust in early 2021. And then after that, it's a bit of like, every time it recovers, we want to come back. And any sort of subsequent takeoffs don't last very long because people are growing increasingly wary. And the domino effect kind of went on from there. The gravy train kind of smashed into a wall. Elon dumped a bunch of bitcoins, causing Do Kwon to be Do Kwon, and SoftBank holding the bags as usual, I want to add. And where is Palantir in all this? It's simply following the flow. Does it have deep connections? Absolutely. Is it getting big contracts? It seems to get big contracts every other day. Does it have real technologies? Well, I mean, as a company working with the army, with different agencies, with different countries' national health systems, I would assume, yes, they have something real. But in that case, why does the stock keep disappointing us over the past few months? Because the fundamentals are one thing. It is just one piece of the puzzle for the market. This is a bit like during the election seasons. The popular votes is not everything that counts. Unfortunately for us, it's just one of the many factors that will determine the final outcome, and that will determine the later policies that are going to come out, right? Same thing for the stock market. The fundamentals for one company is one of the many pieces of puzzle that make the whole picture. So suddenly the mad genius that is Alex Karp suddenly just feels like any other CEO of a loss-incurring ship. And the data sector that people saw was the promised land back then, which, by the way, that many people believe that the metaverse is the current promised land. It's a bit of a parallel that I'm drawing here, and I think that time will tell if that parallel will hold. But for now, I'll maintain my hypothesis. That data is just a big pond where there's an increasing amount of sharks inside, and that capital has other options to go. For example, with the central bank's rates going up, they can always go to bonds. They can always go to safer investments that they actually understand. Because, yes, there are videos explaining what Foundry and Gotham do. Does it really mean that we actually understand the advantage or the edge that it provides to companies, and more importantly, the Palantir's bottom line? Honestly, I don't think we do. And I don't think that many people do or care to know. So either way, the fundamentals are going to play a part. And as long as it doesn't spook the market, for the better or worse, it's not going to cause any significant changes. Because all the way long, the ups and the downs of Palantirs have mostly been dictated by things happening outside of the company. Is VIX up? Are people more interested in taking risks? Is there more capital flowing around the world? Is money still getting pumped out by the trillions? Like it's that kind of stuff that really influences how well Palantir is doing. And so far, I would say that from 2021 onwards, the stock has been negatively affected by those elements. Is it really the company's own fault? No, I don't believe it is. And I also believe that at some point in time, we're going to see the stock reflecting its actual values. And here's another thing. I think that it's going to take quite a few months or years before Palantir can hope to get back to like the $30 or the $40 level. Because when it initially went IPO, I think that a lot of people kind of took its future for the present. And consequently, a lot of what we saw earlier on is just what people think is going to happen a number of years from now. It's just that back then, so much more capital was available in the tech sector. And this is what justified the very high price back then. It didn't really last very long. And frankly, I don't think that it should either. So in this kind of murky environment, what should we do? What can we do? First of all, you have to be able to afford to wait for the long game. So what do I mean by this? At the making of this video, I think that Palantir takes about 0.2% of my portfolio. I've bought in some shares over the past 6 or 9 months, every time I think that the stock is sufficiently low, and more importantly, every time that I think the stock is very near to its bottom. Now, is my aim perfect? Absolutely not. I think that at the moment, I'm down by like 22% on Palantir. But here's the thing. I can afford to wait for a very long time. I'm not going to sell it. I don't have to sell it. Because I don't have leverage on my portfolio, and most of my stocks tend to be like safer investments. And not just Palantir. I mean, I also have some exposure in SoFi. Same thing. It's very low at the moment. I can afford the dollar average cost down later. I think SoFi at some point I was down like 50%. I would go nuts if I were trading like half of my portfolio in SoFi and half my portfolio in Palantir, all that leveraged. I would never do that to myself. And you should aim to not let this kind of situation happening to your portfolio as well. Because regardless of the kind of decisions that we're taking, you have to remember that your portfolio, just like you, is going to go on for decades, right? With human health advancements, we're not going to be here only for minutes. We're not going to be here only just for weeks. Even though opportunities may happen on a time-sensitive basis, you do have to look at the long horizon as well. So what does the long horizon tell me? And by the way, if there's any moment to remind you that this is not like investment advice, this is it, right? So my videos are for entertainment purposes only. They're not your advice to base your investments on. You should definitely do your own research for pushing the buy or sell buttons, to use my videos and anyone other's videos or blog posts or tweets as a chit chat to see if there are things that you haven't thought about. So that is the purpose of videos like ours. I think that in the long run, Palantir will start reflecting what it's really worth. It's not at the moment. First of all, because so many people kind of pre-spent its future, back in 2020. And also because right now, the inflation, the increasing and sometimes skyrocketing interest rates over more than a decade, I would say that we should definitely expect more volatilities for the stock. And because Palantir is sitting right above its IPO price, I would say that it's a good time to start buying. And remember, you have to be able to wait. You have to be able to not liquidate your positions because you kind of have to pay back a debt or something, or because you might get a margin call from the broker. I remember that one of my first videos, when I first began doing YouTube videos, was a company called GNUS, Genius Brands. So I think they make like animations or cartoons for kids. And back then there was a pump, there was a massive pump, going from like penny stocks to somewhere as high as like $5 to $10, depending on your slippage. And one comment in the comment section really struck me. It said, "Hey guys, I bought Genius Brand, and I bought it in around like $9 to $10. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was really high. It was a price point that I actually didn't see on my stock chart, and I'm really feeling bad about this. Do you think that it's gonna get back?" Now, with the benefit of hindsight, no, it didn't. It tried to go beyond $2. It didn't. At the making of this video, I think it's sitting around 70 cents. So you have to avoid this tendency to rush in because you think that a gravy train took off and is going to keep rolling forward. Sometimes, once you see that it happens, it's already over, right? The position has to be placed in before the takeoff occurs. And if it already occurred, you have to really be careful about controlling your risk and not to be in a situation where you have to liquidate a huge position in percentage with a huge loss because the gravy train kind of just disappeared out of thin air. So for Palantir, I would say that now is a decent time to start buying some of your overall Palantir position, and that over the next 9 months, just keep buying it if you feel that Palantir has a future ahead of it. And it's actually very important to start using the investor mindset instead of the trader mindset. I don't think that we're going to see rapid gains for Palantir for some time. However, when the stock starts to take off once again, when every single news website, CNBC, Bloomberg, the Barons, or Seeking Alpha starts to praise the company once again, the takeoff might have already happened. And if you were to get in by then, it would already be too late. And any kind of retracements would be painful to see, especially if the position is large. So I would say that I would recommend to go with 5 to 8% of your portfolio in Palantir and to gradually buy in over the next 6 to 9 months. My personal holding period is at least 12 months. So today's video is slightly different in format compared to most of my videos on this channel so far. It's less scripted. It also goes on many tangents. But I think that it actually covers a lot of the corners that usually we don't cover or that we don't bother to cover. So let me know if you have any comments, and let me know what is your current situation with Palantir. Are you very heavy on the stock? Are you considering to buy it? Did you liquidate all your position in the worst timing possible? So let me know in the comments section. And if you like my content, if you'd like to see more of that kind of videos, please drop a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you around.